Good. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. At our side, we had a hailstorm. I don't know what's going on in your country. Um, so today we are doing number 4 of the heat, so that we can kick people into the big. So today is the big hardwire. All right. So I'm struggling a bit because I've got some echo. I wonder if I can just try one more. Okay. I should go. Can you hear me? Good. All right. Have I got my assistant ready to put up the PowerPoint? Okay, so today we are going to deal with only one hardwire, and that hardwire is the VIC hardwire. And we are dealing with the secondary hardwires. So secondary would mean that it is derived from the primary hardwires. And primary hardwires is where it comes from. Okay. So secondary means your personality and your way that you are responding at this point in time. Okay. So please ask you to put up the PowerPoint. I wonder why it's doing this. My PowerPoint assistant, please. I've got Nikki, I've got Tracy, and I've got
I'm trying.
Okay. Yippee. Okay. So you can see we're doing Zik today. And if you look down, you look at the 12 sessions, then sometimes I'm discussing 2, maybe sometimes 3. But in this case, it's the fat secondary hardwire called victim. Now, victim is the biggest hardwire that we're all suffering from. I haven't seen any report where there's no victim hardwire. So there's something about the way we raise children and the whole concept of abuse that takes place in our primary level. Okay, so let's go. Slide. That's it. Okay. So people would think that this big hardware is their personality or their nature, and this is how I am. I am okay. Don't try to change me. I will meditate or I will medicate my hardwires away. And especially when it comes to the victim hardwire, I find that in our coaching revolution programs, we are getting people to chicken out of the process because they just cannot face the reality of this victim hardwire. So according to my 2 cent worth opinion, I believe Vic hardware is the most difficult hardware to crack because there's so many dramas in the brain that plays out around this hardwire that people just keep on holding on to that hardwire. They have developed coping mechanism to with life. And if you are going to try to crack that hardwire, then they don't know what to place it. So let's go and look deeper in how this hardwire plays. Next. Okay, so we can see it comes from unconducive parenting. You recognize the icon by now. And the second one, the green one, is abuse. Those two primary hardwires cause mass victim. So victim is pink, and you can see it's a if you go read about the Cartman drama triangle, you will get a lot of information. You'll get information of how it plays out in the workplace, how managers with this victim hardwire plays themselves, and how relational dynamic out when hardwire is. Okay?
Hi, Viva.
There's, yes.
The sound is very bad. You are breaking.
Yeah, I've got a lot of feedback in it. So anybody that's technically smart that can help me with that?
I think there's somebody that is not muted. Somebody needs to mute. Somebody is listening and they just need to mute their mic. I think that's why we're getting that bad feedback.
Okay. I'm going to hang up and come in again. Good. So let's see if we can carry on. I still have I don't know what else. Okay. Can we make it a big screen, please? Okay, so we know that it comes from a place. Can you hear me? Can you just put up your hand, because now it's all gone. All my feedback is gone. So that's wonderful. Okay, mooi Celeste. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. Now I can hear myself. That's fantastic. Okay.
It's nice and clear, Vivian. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so let's just quickly start to summarize. It is coming from unconducive parenting and abuse. Okay, and that is, we have no idea, just the verbal abuse that we do to our children, how much victim hardwire we're causing. That victim hardwire is playing out in a triangular way. We call it the drama triangle, and there's a lot on the internet available. So you could nowadays, there's so much work done on understanding this Vic hardwire and the fact that it is the mother of all hardwires that we are now in our life suffering from. So it's the vulnerable child in the hands of an insecure, anxious, and hardwired parent, guardian, teacher, and who else the abuser might be. And what it causes, it puts this guilt onto this little innocent little child that we are, when we are just victims in the hands of our parents and the guardians and the adults that we're dealing with. And that is what happens. So we're developing unconscious guilt, shame, because of all the type of fine little manipulation that the adult brings upon that child, programs this victim hardwire in the child's psyche. So blame and shame and lies and addictions to things and unbelief and all those psychological or intelligences get warped already at a very, very, very small age. And as I said to you, in the first 7 years, most of this happens. So next. Cool. So we call it the Karpman drama triangle. I just love this this way of understanding it, and it's been going on. I think Mr. Karpman was in the 1950s. He actually started realizing how this pattern plays out, and it plays out in every culture, in every human, and there's maybe a bit more emphasis on the one side of the triangle or the other side of the triangle, but it plays out in that three-tiered drama inside the mind of the person. So it's what we would say three confused personas all messed up in one mind, and each one of them are justifying themselves that they are right to think or to reason. So it's a reasoning pattern that you will see. So we call it the rescuer. So the one would be the rescuer, the second one would be the persecutor, and the third one would be the victim. Okay, so the rescuer. So let's start. We already started joking about that because I think a lot of us are guilty of that side, which is a victim, part of the victim pattern. The more you are nice, the more you could actually know the chance that you've got a victim hardwire playing out is very likely. So I'm always saying, be careful of nice people, because they're very likely just playing out their victim hardwire. And it's very harsh, but I told you that I'm the provocateur in this process, and that I'm going to take this bull by the horns in a straight way. So I know the people who do have high victim hardwires are now already sensitive. They cannot really handle what I'm going to say, because that victim hardwire in you is jumping up and down, because you don't want other people, you don't want to bring out things so hard, you want to cushion things, you want to put a cotton wool around the way we talk about things. You cannot handle the truth of the matter, because what happened to you when you were very small, when you didn't even know, when you were still unconscious of self, you didn't even know that, you actually got very much aina, and you got a lot of it because of the adults around you that actually perpetrated you. So you are averse against harsh ways, or direct. You don't like direct approaches. So that already, so you must now recognize it as you are listening to me. You must recognize it. And let me tell you, sooner than later, people are going to see these truths in you in any case. So the sooner you take ownership over yourself having that pattern, and I'm really now talking to you, because I know the helping profession is suffering a lot from the victim hardwire, and people who are in any type of human related profession, you would find that the victim hardwire is just generally very high. So it's a lifelong journey of change, and that this is your most resistant, your total resistant hardwire. So you're not going to like me talking straight now to you. The rescuer side of that pattern in your brain is the helpful one. Ooh, he just wants to help. We've got a manager here, Mr. Masibani. Ooh, he will, he will jump in, and if the rescuer sees that somebody is possibly not competent, they're going to jump in and they're going to do that job, because they want to show how good they are and how they can do it. It's going to look as if they're helping, and they also are thinking that they are helping, but their help is not helping. They're basically disempowering, because if I try to do something as an emerging human, and especially different cultures, we see that a lot amongst white and black taking place in this country of ours, where a person is still an emerging human trying to learn that skill and not yet 100% competent, and somebody jumps in, barges in and takes over and helps you to finish it, then basically it's condescending, because you're making that person to feel that you can't, therefore I have to show you. So that's typically the pattern. That's what that rescuing mentality could very nice be doing. And they will rather, and because they're actually scared of a lot of things. There could be different messages in the brain that says, I'm scared of that other human's failure. I won't personally be able to handle that person's failure. Or it would say, it is now my opportunity to get some recognition and get some affirmation that I'm actually very competent and very okay. It's all this inferiority stuff that's playing out. So the rescuer, and you're going to now see in your mind, if with your victim pattern in your mind, there's already another component of this pattern brewing inside your mind, and that one is called the persecutor. You're going to say, how can she say that? How can she be like that? I'm just nice. I'm just trying to help. I just want to get the organization. I'm standing for this organization. I'm caring about the company. And all those little, so there's already the next part of the pattern that's going to start coming out. And that part of the pattern is, there's a right and a wrong. We've got to get things we can't allow this thing to be wrong in our company. Can't you see how loyal I am towards my company and how I'm helping this company to succeed? But what you are basically doing is you're just playing out your pattern. So the second one is called the persecutor. So that persecutor pattern is what we call the blame, claim, frame, and nail side of the mind, of the way the person reasons about things. So that person is going into higher, upper higher, what do we call it? Upper higher ground type of thing. Oh, I know what is right and what is wrong. There's a right and that is wrong, or that is not very good to do that. Oh, so there could be all sorts of things playing out. They could use a lot of religion to show what is good and bad and evil and whatever, and right and wrong and black and white and judgment. So they take up the role of the judge. They take up the role of the judge that makes a judgment over the situation, that makes a judgment over that person that is playing out in front of them, or that situation that they are actually so fearful of. But they go into that persecutor type of role, assume the role of the judge. I am God. I can actually make a judgment over stuff. Which is obviously very wrong. We have no right to make any judgment over situations, but that pattern cannot help itself. It will play out in this way. And then it would blame, or it would judge, or it would want to persecute somebody. I was Mr. Masibani. We just had the situation. I can now tell you, it's playing out in front of you every single day. You're going to get homework to actually look for that pattern and bring back an example and a little case of that pattern playing out. So now you're looking for the person who's wrong, and that person must be punished. That person I want to, the students, I want to actually find the one that was things, and I want to make sure I get that human. So there's like inside the brain a little bit of a grudge developing, a little bit of a unforgiveness, a little bit of a judgmental type of spirit. Okay, so then the third part of the Vic hardwire, the way it plays out, is called the victim. That is the Vic side. So that is the side that says, you're not giving me enough recognition. I'm working so hard. Look how I've been helping. Number one of the triangle is to do all the helping. So just look at how hard I'm working. I'm giving my everything. I'm helping you so much. I'm making your sandwiches, and look how they are treating me. And after everything I'm doing for my husband, and he's still going into an affair, oh, look at me, poor me, I'm going to eat some worms. And then that victim pattern, in any which way, it can play out professional. Don't think it is some pathology that you want to look for in somebody else. It is playing out in you. Let's go to the next one. And then blame and guilt and shame is then forming part of this whole thing. Okay, so now the Vic card, I'm first going to look at the right side. The persecutor is happy to allocate blame and ensure that other players know they are in the wrong. They must know. People must know they are wrong. They are probably angry. They accuse them. They're inflexible. They have got self-righteous. In order to have their needs met, they require the victim, someone into whom they can project their irritation. So they will look for a scapegoat So that blame or whatever, of shame is looking for, they will look somewhere for a scapegoat. They will try to discredit and devalue some human. They cannot help it. They're going to do that. And I can tell you now that there's humans sitting now with me in this audience that is going to do that specifically with me that's in front of you, because I'm going to bring out more and more truth. And the problem with the victim is they cannot handle the truth. And you will have to do self-introspection and say, oh, look at how my pattern is playing out. Why is it doing like that? And it's not your fault necessarily. It's not. Well, it isn't, because you were the victim in the hands of an unconducive parent or a perpetrator. The victim side takes the brunt of the persecutor's wrath. The victim feels hard done by, got at, powerless, ashamed, unable to do anything. This is obviously a position of anxiety. That's all it is. It's just anxiety. But psychologically, it can bring some cheap comfort or some cheap, almost a cheap satisfaction. So a victim dwells, we call it that, they dwell into their victim state. It gives them some dwelling into that pity. The victim role feels natural to you. Well, and then, sorry, I don't know, if the victim role feels natural to you, then you need to seek out the persecutor. You haven't already got one, but also the rescuer. So the rescuer, a big ball of guilt. So the rescuer is acting out of some form of guilt, needs someone to help, because when you're the hero to others, then you don't have to deal with your own feelings of anxiety or displacement. And that's why I'm saying that my experience in all these years is that the victim hardwire is the most difficult one to crack. So they don't want to deal with the pain inside, that absolute deep pain of being victimized and being abused when they were young. And they don't want to go there. They will rather play this triangular pattern. They will fight nail and teeth to prevent other humans around them from taking ownership. And that's one thing we must see. They don't like A to B programs. I can now tell you that, because the A to B program is moving humans to become self-agents, to become taking ownership over their own lives. No, they want to be the one that helps. They want to be the one that there's a codependency relationship on. They don't want to give up that role. So their own children, they will spoil brat their children until they are adults, and then they will make them feel guilty. Oh, after everything I've done for you, now it's payback time to us, and they will keep this codependency type of pathology relationship, never allow them to become eagles, like the way eagles do, where eagles kick their children out of the nest at some point in time and expect them to fly because they believe in them being eagles. But this pity party and this absolute insecurity of the victim hardwire inside humans will try to keep that relationship with the next generation and keep that guilt trips going, so that they can have some form of dependency. So they'll always give little gifts and little help, and they love the handouts. They love to keep them dependent on them, so that they can feel they are actually the one that was the nice one, and get that cheap recognition all the time. So they are the ones you'll also find in the human rights type of organizations or political correctness places, because they would like to show that they are standing on behalf of other humans and they are helping other humans to actually protect their rights for them. In the meantime, if you go and just say what to them, you will realize they're the most scared, most underdeveloped humans that actually are living that fake life of thinking that they're doing something. If you look at the left side, if somebody gets hurt, now that is another thing you must go check out. That is typical. A victim cannot help it. They capitalize. Let's say somebody in your organization gets hurt, or there's is becoming vulnerable in some way. The Vic hardwired person, the one with the highest Vic hardwired person, is going to capitalize on it. They don't care really about that injured person because they are psychologically injured themselves in such a way. But they're going to now drive some human right thing around it, and they're going to make people, give attention to that poor hurt person, and they're going to do all sorts of stuff to be seen that they are doing things for that hurt person. They're going to use the platform of that hurt person to actually drive their own ego that is so hurt. Next one. Yes, so as I said, they cannot deal with real hardcore truth. It's just too painful to deal with hardcore truth, because their life and their first formation years, they were manipulated and indoctrinated into subtle or real deceit. It could be subtle little false stuff, and because the perpetrator or an abuser will always hurt you. That is the pattern. They will hurt you. Then they become your savior. Then they are the ones that bring you the medicine or the savior or care for you or bring you little sweeties, because then they are actually then again the savior. And then you are becoming so confused and your brain becomes so chaotic. And then it creates this slowly but surely this dependency, codependency, sick pathological relationship on the abuser or the user and abuser. But that is the pattern it plays out. So it will spook you, it will hurt you, it will make you scared, it will put you into that weakness state whilst you are still vulnerable, and then it will come up, and then it will stay the savior, and in that way the perpetrator becomes the one that the poor victim is dependent on, and therefore now you are so confused in your brain, you don't know what is the real truth anymore. You don't know what is truth, because everything actually is just some manipulation that gets played on you, and it's all just a lie. So you start slipping down the pattern of darkness because you have no clue what really is the real truth. So people can pump all sorts of and give you all sorts of stuff and tell you all, and you'll run for all sorts of little things, but you cannot have discernment anymore, because you've just been raised in this deceitful type of state of being, and you will have high levels of fear. So if you look at all the phobias and the fears on you, then you can see it is directly related to the Vic Hardwire also, because you have bought into the concept of fear, because the perpetrator, somebody must have put fear on you, otherwise you wouldn't have fear. An eagle breeding parent is not going to teach their child fear. It's going to challenge them to move out of that nest and to go sit on the branch. It doesn't teach you fear, it teaches you overcoming of fear. So your whole primary hardwiring process taught you fear. And after all, what is fear? I mean, fear is false evidence appearing real. So it's all about spooking you. So most of the things, because we are at the top of the food chain, we are human beings, we are wonderfully and made to actually totally overcome fear. But if somebody raises you and instills fear, then how could they love you? They can only try to do it so that they can manage you with carrot and with stick, which is the fear management principle. Next. Okay, so yeah, we're looking at what hardwires are going to now grow because of the Vic hardwire. So now that this hardwire is going to cause you a lot of more hardwires to grow in you. So this hardwire makes babies. It makes babies like you can't believe it. So we haven't discussed these hardwires, and we'll get to it, but I'm just going to mention it. So the first one is ecosystem. So in an ecosystem or a work environment or a home environment, you're going to, with that Vic hardwire, develop Vic cliques. You're going to look for other people and you're going to want to gossip because you cannot help it. So the fundamental thing you see in the workplace with a Vic hardwire is a gossiper, somebody that is gossiping the whole time. They can't stand strong because they are weak. A victim is actually a very weak. You know, there was this, what is that, Gollum? What is that movie where that guy's played that is like, he wants to help and he's behind you, but then he also bites you in the back. So, and he plays a nice role that, you know, was it Gollum in that Lord of the Rings. So it is typically that type of pattern, but it plays out in obviously a more professional way. So in ecosystem, you're going to have massive problems, and you're going to look for ecosystems where you can actually find your own type. So the more you have got that victim hardwire, the more you're going to look for a Vic click. You're going to look for clicks that you Vic clicks. Okay, the next one is ELOC. Which is external locus, and you can see that one, that is the old gold color type of, or that mustard color, is dependency. So if somebody messed you up and feared you, raised you in a fearful way, you will be in the hands, you will become a puppet in a string. You basically give over your soul's dimension to somebody else in a dependency relationship or a codependency relationship. So later you won't even, you will, it's all about what other people think and what other people say. And how other people behave, and you're going to start just following like a sheep. You're not going to develop identity, and you're going to be dependent on people and become just a that we'll go into. The other one is WIS, which is the covert narcissism. So your ego is hurt. So in your primitive brain, your ego is hurt, or your self, which is your self-preservation. So that is why the one side is about me, me, me. Why didn't you give me more attention? And why does he not give me? And how did he hurt me in this process? And poor me. So it's an ego problem, and it's a massive primitive brain. So it pulls you back into your primitive brain, into egotism. So it's a form of narcissism. And then BAT, which is then critical. So you will always like look and criticize other people. They can't do that. They are not correct in doing that. But four fingers are always showing back in that, and the negativity. So negativity and rebellion and all those things coming out in the bad attitude. Then mental matters. One of the things that definitely starts happening is paranoia. Now, anybody that gossips is going to develop eventually a form of paranoia, because that's a pathological behavioral pattern, and paranoia becomes a psychological pattern. So later you're going to start wondering why they have something in for me, or why are they doing it to me? And that paranoid type of process starts developing, which is a beginning of a schizophrenic disorder. Then VEN, which is vengefulness. That's dealing with grudges and unforgiveness, because obviously somebody who was a victim of circumstances are going to, think for yourself how difficult it is for them to ever, for a little child. Imagine if you have been raped. Imagine whatever that circumstances is that you've gone through, how absolutely difficult it is to actually get to forgiveness, and you are going to be carrying that grudge. And when we get into the vengeful hardwire, we'll see how that is going to play out. And then heartlessness. It doesn't matter how many times you go to church or do all sorts of nice stuff where you are trying to be a good person, but you're going to start losing your heart more and more. So that hardwire is developing, where eventually when it comes to the push, that person is going to not have mercy. When it comes to the final push, sometimes circumstances are nice and that hardwire doesn't really play itself out. But wait until the corona gets worse. Wait until something is happening more severe to a human with a victim hardwire. They actually feel nothing eventually. Doesn't matter what they say in their words, they will feel nothing, and their heartlessness is going to grow. Next. I told you, he will even kill that guy. I told you yesterday. Yeah. Okay, so then there's two components of Vic dwelling patterns. And the one is, we call it EVIC, and the other one we call IVIC. So EVIC is then external victim pattern. So it is it's the whole thing of externalizing it. So it could come out in different ways. It is, you could be now, let's say in a marriage, and you are being victimized and being perpetrated all the time, and being suppressed and being bullied all the time. So it is really there. It's an external thing that is happening. Someone else is a perpetrator. But then your mindset starts taking that EVIC that says that makes excuses in all sorts of ways. So you blame things or you make excuses why it's right for things to be wrong. It's not my fault. I couldn't because you promised me that. You promised. Just anyone that would say you promised is already showing the victim hardwire playing out. Oh, it's so difficult because of those external circumstances. You burdened me too much. I am a white male, that's why I can't get it right in South Africa, or a black, whatever. I mean, we're just using all sorts of external things to give a reason why it's right for us to be wrong and why it's right for us not to move forward. Remember, a hardwire is just something that blocks you to get to your optimum human. It blocks your responsiveness levels. So the IVIC is the internal victim. And that is, we see that stronger coming out when a person has got a dominant Z brain. Then IVIC is definitely much stronger. So because remember, the Z side of the brain is dealing with tasks and with structure and task completion point and trying to get a task done in a successful way, and trying to be perfect according to norms and standards. So IVIC, if a person is a Z brain and being abused and had bad parenting, that combination obviously is going to for sure cause IVIC. So this human is going to start becoming their own perpetrator or their own bully. So you are going to start bullying yourself. You're going to chastise yourself. You're going to say, you're going to always try harder and harder and harder to better perfection. And you're always going to think you are not perfect enough. I see every day that in my sessions and in my work, how humans are beautiful. They are the most lovely humans. They are just, everything is just so incredible, but they are hating themselves because they're not good enough. So they're chastising themselves from the inside, and that's what we call the IVIC pattern that comes out when you had more a Z brain and the abuser situation, or the unconducive parenting that was causing that. Next. Okay, so as I said in the beginning, it's the worst hardwire really to break. It's the most difficult one to break. When it's in the red, you really have to dedicate your life to change and to rewire new patterns in your brain, and you have to have a help. And that is the problem. The victim mind doesn't want help because they hate dealing with themselves. They don't want to go so deep into that pain where they came from. And we call it's like a dog that returns to its vomit. So fools repeatedly repeat their folly. That to me is the most incredible, exact way to describe the victim pattern when it starts becoming malignant, when it starts becoming yellow to red. Then it becomes malignant. It becomes a cancer inside your brain. It's almost as if you cannot help yourself. You want to deny. You don't want to handle the truth. So you want to stay in that drama. That drama gives you some cheap kick, and you rather want to be like a dog that goes back to its vomit. Next. Okay, so let's look at the victim, that is the gossiper in the workplace, and the Vic click. So let's just look at 5 truths about gossip. Gossip makes you unsafe and eventually lonely. So that victim hardwire perpetuates itself in its behavioral patterns, and you become more and more lonely, and higher insecurity. Gossip indicates emotional immaturity. A gossip always comes back to you. I can't see what is the bottom part of it. There's a thing over it. At the right-hand side, people are quick to believe the bad things they hear about good people. Now, that's what a victim does. A victim is believing bad things they hear about good people. They eat all sorts of stuff that they hear in their gossips with their victim clicks. They eat it up. They need it. They also watch movies that they like those bad things. They eventually feed themselves deeper and deeper into that Vic patterns. They feed their brain with the wrong type of movies. They like those stuff eventually. So they like to receive gossips from, especially from good people, because they feel so bad about themselves. Next. Okay, so as I said, I mean, Vic Hardwire comes from a bad place in childhood, and it's a place where it's an unhappy chappy. Grudges, we said, hatred, which you will never admit. They will never admit. They could be the most hypocritical, wonderful people, and they can know all the wonderful things and all the good stuff in the Bible and the whatever. I can tell you, it doesn't matter what religion, they can be putting up that false self, but in the inside they actually have got so much pain. At the right it says here, rumors are carried by haters, spread by fools, and accepted by idiots. And people are probably not happy with their lives if they are busy discussing yours. So you know they are not happy with their lives. So anyone that does that is not happy with their lives. Open your mouth to do gossip. And we know your Vic Hardwire is playing out, and you are definitely not happy with your own life. Next. Okay, so you give your pattern away. So the more we understand these things, the more you give your pattern. Every time you open your mouth, you give your pattern away. So it says here to the right, what Susie says of Sally's says more of Susie than of Sally. So, and I see that, I mean, on management level, on executive level, you open your mouth, and what Susie says of Sally says more of Susie than of Sally. And then, you know, we've got to have these tools where we can start singing the song in front of the Vic Hardwire playing out, and that says that we just like make that person away. Can you not see how you're playing out that Hardwire pattern? Next. Okay, so how we are not here in a course to deal with the behavior. We are just there to interpret the behavior and to tell the person what this behavior really is. But there's something I just thought I want to just put in here. The first thing is to keep on making humans aware that we've got to know the behavior. And yes, if you are a conscious organization that really cares about growth and about moving forward and getting to proper bottom line and end results, then you should be having hardwire assessments as part of your performance management process. And that hardwire needs to be exposed and outrooted, because it's a killer in a workplace. It needs to be exposed. Now, the only thing I can now give you a little bit about this hardwire, and I'm calling it reform. You can reform a human fast in the workplace with this hardwire. You cannot necessarily transform. That takes a lot of deeper spiritual healing, but you can reform. So if you look at the white side of the slide, what the moment we have found, if we put a person on, and most of us are suffering from this hardwire, but if you put a person on a responsive, where it's all about understanding the responsiveness and what hardwire is blocking your responsiveness to be a leader, and you put the people on those type of pro-human courses where they have pro-human tools, then you can turn around quite successfully if that human is going to be in a workplace where it is expected that you change. You've got to lead the change. You can't be soft on a victim hardwire. You, as the leader of your organization, has to lead it and expect it and say, this is part of our organization policy. We are turning the victim into a victor, and we firstly, the first part of that Vic Hardwire, the persecutor part, we can turn it, we can reform it at least into becoming a provocateur or a challenger. So where they want to judge and they want to condemn and they want to find that person that they want to gossip and they want to scapegoat that person, we can turn that behavior at least in a way that the human becomes a challenger. They do have bees in their bonnets about humans all the time because they cannot help it because of that Vic hardwire. And they will always have a thing to say, but at least you can help that bully persecution, which they are wanting now to take out on somebody else because it was happening to them when they were young. At least you can move that bully behavior into a more collaborative approach that relies on transparency and openness, and where you actually call this thing what it is. You put it where it belongs, where the person knows my hardwire is playing out. I must turn this thing into more a behavior that is not just critical and angry and that wants to take it out on some other human that I can put my hands on, but I can actually do it in a constructive way. Then the victim side of that triangle, they one needs to help them to realize you're a survivor. You can become a victor. You are going to always look for validation. In my organization, in a male form, I'm having an experience where that Vic hardwire plays out in a way almost like a grade 1 school child. The person needs so much validation, they will the whole time come and report. They report back to you, and because they want you to say, "Oh, that's very nice. I'm putting a little star on your head." Like the grade 1 little child that comes and says, teacher, I did my homework. Oh, I can get a nice little star. So that type of need for validation comes through the whole time. But the more a person can understand that they can get themselves beyond that point of that codependency that they need with their boss and stuff like that. Then thirdly, it plays out in rescuing, and the rescuer, and that's where I'm saying, in this industry of ours, we could turn that into coaches that are not that are becoming provocateur type of coaches. It links to the first part of that persecutor that becomes a provocateur. So they can help in a way that they are provocateuring and more coaches, and they don't have to do rescuing. And we can give a lot of tools to help that human to break that rescue pattern. Next. Okay, that brings us to the end of the session and your homework. So from now on, every one of you have homework to do, and that would be to specifically go and deeply see it around you. I can tell you tonight when you're going to go home, you're going to see Vic pattern play out. I can tell you tomorrow when you go to work, you're going to see the Vic pattern play out. And I want every one of you to write a paragraph of a moment that you saw how it played out, and see if you can spot it. So now we are not, and yes, the victim is now going to be the one that's now going to look to spot it so that they can play that persecutor role again. So don't do that. Try to be as neutral as you can. Try to get your anxiety down as much, and try to just be an observer and see how that pattern plays out somewhere in your life, or in your own life, or in yourself, and then just write that down to us. And I'm going to ask you by Thursday that you would have sent. So please send it to me as soon as possible. I'm going to collate them all together at the end of our sessions. We're going to give you a very nice. There's a Hardwires interpretation manual where we're going to add all these examples, and it's from different. So you must just maybe just put the scenario, the age group and the male or wherever province you are in or whatever. Just give a little and how it plays out, and see if you can spot the Vic hardwire. Is there any question? No questions. So that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you very much. I think we've got a lot of food for thought. It is hardcore stuff, this, and I hope to see you on Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Viv. Thanks, Vivian.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Vivian. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.